It's time for the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show.
Good morning, Charleston, and welcome to another edition of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. I'm, of course, your host, Brian Beatty. Thanks for listening this hour. We're going to cover a lot of ground today. I really want to get deep into what's happening in the market right now. There's a lot of missed signals out there. It depends on, of course, where you're getting your information and who you trust and the experience the person you're listening to has, right? But I think if you go online and you just Google real estate market news, you're going to get a mixed bag of results. And a lot of it is going to revolve around things like a looming recession and a housing bubble that's about to burst. And so there's a lot of uncertainty in the market. And as a result of that, consumer confidence has gone down. So I want to talk about the impact that that's having on the real estate market, because not all of it makes perfect sense, if I'm being honest. There are some mixed signals in the market as well. And I know that you guys listen to this program to try and get a leg up on the competition, to really figure out what's happening with the market before major media outlets tell you what's happening. Because I, as somebody that's been selling real estate here locally for the past 20 years and have done about 1,500 transactions, about $1 billion worth of real estate that we've represented here locally, and a large team, we have a really close ear to the ground. We have a really good idea of what consumers are thinking and feeling and how they're behaving. And we relay that information to you so that you guys are an informed consumer. You have insider information on what's happening in the real estate market to help plan your next move, or just to educate yourself on the process of buying, selling, or investing in real estate. So that's what this show is all about. And I appreciate those of you that tune in, week out. We've had the pleasure of working with a lot of you already this year. So thank you for that. I want to kind of get into the market because it's been a frustrating few months. We're not quite where we want to be as a market. We're dealing with interest rate fluctuations. We're dealing with all kinds of factors that are way outside of our control, right? The world economy and everything that's going on there with tariffs. And if you missed the show that we did, which I think we ran for 2 weeks, the week before and the week before that, I had really my best friend, who is a financial genius, come on and just talk about the impact of tariffs on the real estate market and some of the different routes that that might lead us to, both locally, regionally, and nationally. And so that's a really good listen or watch, because we put all of our radio shows on YouTube. And then we also put that on all our social media channels. And then we turn it into a podcast as well, which is on iTunes and Spotify and Google Play and all those great places. So check those out. We've got over 1,000 videos on YouTube, by the way. So let's talk about the market. People always ask, right, how's the market? And it's such an interesting question, because a lot of agents are going to answer that based on how their specific business is going, right? The challenge with just everyday real estate agents in terms of their analysis of the market is that there's always this underlying tone of, well, I want your business, so I need you to think that everything is rosy and rainbows and butterflies, and I'm the best. The reality is there are a lot of agents out there right now that are struggling. Sales have not picked up to the extent we would have liked to have seen them pick up. All the while, prices are still going up, which is throwing things out of whack. So I'll get into some of these stats, but I'm just here to tell you that when you ask somebody how's the market, I think be more specific with the information you're actually looking for. You could just ask, how's their personal business going? But if you want to know how the market is behaving, this is the show for you, because this is where we really peel back the curtain, help you guys understand what's happening, and then also discuss the process of buying a house, selling a house. How do we do both at the same time, right? Most everybody needs to sell their home before they can buy another. And although we've covered that topic many times on this program, and there's tons of videos that we've done online on this, I find it interesting that in most instances, when we sit down, when we meet with sellers, right, we talk with them about working together to help them sell their property. A lot of them still don't know how that process works. So take the time, if you're thinking of making a move, and just educate yourself. We have a fantastic guide that I wrote personally. It's called The Most Comprehensive Home Seller Guide in Charleston. And I wrote it myself. It's about 50 pages, and it is chock full of all kinds of information and strategies and things that I've learned over a successful 20-year real estate career. We're happy to send that report to you, by the way. Just text the word report to 843-800-0065. That's my number. Call or text. But if you want that report, just text the word report to 843-800-0065, and I'll send that right over to you. And if you missed that, maybe it's easier to just go to our website, listingsincharleston.com. All right, let me talk about the market for a little bit. And I'm going to give you just some generalized stats, and then I want to kind of dig a little deeper here and help you guys understand really, in my opinion, what's happening here. And first, let me just very quickly say that for those of you that have listened to the show, you know that I love numbers, I love data, I consider myself an expert, and it's because I look at this stuff day after day, week after week, and I've done it on this show for 13 years, so I have force-fed myself information to the point where after a while you absorb so much of it, it really does become, you become a bit of an expert in it. And so I'm going to read these stats, but I'm going to tell you what I think is really happening right now and the decisions that I think you guys need to make if you're planning on buying or selling or maybe even investing in real estate. So here they are in no real particular order, but and all these statistics that I'm going to give you are for the entire Charleston MLS market, which is Charleston, Berkeley, Dorchester County. New listings. New listings are up about 8% compared to last year. Pending sales are only up 1.5%. Closings are down 1.5%. Properties are taking 35% longer to sell. The median sales price currently sits at $422,950. That's up a little over 3% compared to last year. The percentage of original asking price that you're going to receive, let's say you list your house for $100,000. What can you expect to receive based on negotiations and what the market's willing to pay? Well, 96.4% is the answer. It's pretty much unchanged from last year. But unfortunately, housing affordability, which is something we have talked about a lot on this program, the measure of income to the cost of owning a home. We call it the Housing Affordability Index. And basically what that means is that if we have a score of 100, then that means that the median income in our area is 100% of what is necessary to qualify to purchase the median priced home in our area, given prevailing interest rates and a 20% down payment. So that's what this statistic looks at. And right now, we've got one of the lower months we've seen at 73%. In other words, our median income in our area is only 73% of what's necessary to qualify to buy the median priced home in our market with a 20% down payment. And there are a lot of people that don't have 20% down. They've got 10, 5, 3.5 if they're FHA, 0 if they're VA. So we've got still a housing affordability crisis on our hands. So what's happening with inventory? I told you that new listings were up 8%, but the total number of homes for sale has gone up 25%. This time last year, we had a little over 3,600. Now we have over 4,500. And in fact, this is March's numbers. When I look in the MLS, we're at 4,700. We have over 1,000 properties more than we did this time last year, which is what's increasing the month's supply of inventory, which is another stat we use to determine whether we're in a seller's market or a normal market or a buyer market. And so I know I just threw a lot of stats at you. Let me just kind of give you the narrative associated with these stats. And I'm not going to pick on any particular one at this particular moment because here's the challenge. A lot of journalists, a lot of people on YouTube, radio show hosts, I can throw myself into the mix, of course, just because of the irony of the situation. But people that are good at sales, people that are good at storytelling, have a way of fixating on a specific type of statistic, a line item among the list of metrics that we look at. They'll identify one or two that could be an outlier for that month, or it could be, something like, look, I told you that the month supply of inventory went up 24%. Well, it went from 2.5 months to 3 months. Okay. You went from 40 days on market to 54 days on market, an extra 2 weeks. Although this time last year, it was at 37. the point is, people have a way of fixating on specific statistics that then allow them to build a story around that, which is why you see all these videos on YouTube about imminent crashes coming and a tidal wave of foreclosures and, how doomed the market is. And I think you just need to be really careful about the kind of content that you absorb. I'm a realist. I'm somebody that plays in this sandbox every day. I absorb real estate all day, every day, right? It is my source of income. Now, of course, I'm an agent. I'm an investor. I have a property management company, a private money lending company. So we do a lot of things real estate related, which is why we have this turnkey service for our clients that when they come to us, we basically say, look, we can help you do whatever you want to do with a house or a piece of land. If you own a business, commercial building, we have great partners that we'll connect you with that are experts in their field, just like they connect us with folks that need to buy or sell or invest in real estate because we're an expert in our field. So the market in general, honestly, it doesn't look all that bad on paper, but when we come back, I'm going to, again, peek behind the curtain. I'm going to tell you guys what I think is really going on here. So a lot more to cover on this topic, and then we'll kind of bounce around a little bit, talk about a few other things, but that's the plan, guys. So if you want to reach out to me, if you're thinking about buying a house, selling a house, investing in real estate, you just want to create a roadmap, right? You want to kind of figure out what needs to happen in order for this to get accomplished. If I have X period of time to get this done, what can I be doing now? What do those steps look like? Well, first thing I would say is get a copy of our guide. It will walk you through all of that. Text the word guide to 843-800-0065. That's 843-800-0065. Or you can just go online. Listingsincharleston.com is our website, and you can request it there. And 843-800-0065 is my cell, so you can call or text that number. It comes straight to me. So what is really going on in the real estate market? That's the question that everybody asks right now is, what direction are we headed? What do I do with this information, or almost this lack of information that seems to be available on the direction of the real estate market? And I'll tell you, in all honesty, it's really hard to predict right now. There's a lot going on in the world, in our economy, politics. I mean, it's all clumped together for a lot of people, and it's preventing people from making decisions on whether to buy now or sell now or wait. Because if somebody decides proactively to wait, they want the situation to be better for them down the road than it is now. Now, that might be circumstantial and totally revolved around their specific situation, right? Maybe they're just not ready to do it. But if you're trying to time the market, if you're really trying to analyze what's happening here and say, when is the absolute best time for me to get the most money for my house and get a good deal on something that I buy? Again, it's a really hard question to answer right now, and I'm not going to pretend like I have all the answers because I don't. I've always just been of the school of thought that I'd rather deal with the devil I know than the devil I don't. Meaning, I'd rather help somebody understand the current market as it stands right now and what to do with that information than try and project what's going to happen a year from now. There's so much that could happen that it makes that extremely difficult. So when I read off those statistics about what's going on in our market, on the surface level, it doesn't seem that bad. I mean, new listings up 8% and closings are down 1.5%, and things are taking 2 weeks longer to sell, but prices have gone up a little over 3%. The reality is, and there are a few things here that I really want to look at. One is showings, right? When we sit down with a seller and we're talking about the process of selling a house, right? And everything that we're going to do, right? We go over price, condition, marketing, motivation, strategy, logistics. I mean, all of those things, right? We cover all those bases during that discussion. And one of the things we talk about is what kind of interest they should expect to receive on their home when they actually list it for sale on the open market. Meaning, how many showings should they be getting? Well, the really nice thing is that our market, because we use a third-party service called Showing Time, Any agent that wants to view a property, they just go online, they click on the addresses they want to see and the day and times they want to see it, and then this company, Showing Time, will coordinate everything. Well, they also record all of that data and share it with us so that when we sit down with a seller, we can say, hey, if this is, where we're going to price the home in this area, in this price range, homes are getting X number of showings per month. That's our target, right? We need to be at or better than that number. If we're significantly below that number, then, perhaps we've missed the mark. Or if you're one of the sellers that just believes that they don't have to do anything to their house in order to sell it because we're in the same market we were 3-4 years ago, I'm just here to tell you we're not. And buyers are putting a lot more emphasis on the condition of the home right now in this market than they have in years past. And so maybe that's a reason why we're not getting the kind of activity we're getting, is because buyers don't want to deal with the work. And yeah, work is expensive right now, right? Contractors are having a field day with what's going on in our market and the growth that we're seeing locally, and the not only just the increase in actual cost, whether it's materials or labor, but also the ability for people to charge more because everybody else is, right? How many times have you walked into a store or bought something recently and you're like, why is this so expensive? But everybody else is doing it, right? I guess that's the benefit of capitalism. Anywho, one thing we look at, of course, again, going back to, staying on track here, is the number of showings that we're supposed to be getting every time we list a property for sale. And right now, if I look at, like Berkeley County, their showings are down 19%. Charleston County is down 21%, and Dorchester County is down over 25%. On top of that, when I look at the actual number of homes for sale in these 3 different counties, Berkeley County has about a 12% increase in the number of properties for sale right now. Dorchester County has a 33% increase in the number of homes for sale, and Charleston County has seen almost a 40% increase in the number of homes for sale compared to this time last year. So this is one of the things that I wanted to point out. I remember when we kind of all got back to the office after COVID and we were just trying to figure out what this new landscape of selling real estate is going to look like, right? Because we were selling homes to people that were moving from the other side of the country. They never walked through the house. We FaceTimed them and showed them everything, and they put a lot of trust in us, obviously, to help them purchase a property virtually. But one thing that we were, I recall this clear as day, one thing that we were tracking was the number of properties available for sale at any given point in time. And for a long time, there wasn't much available. I remember in the beginning of 2022, there were only 150 homes available for sale in Dorchester County and 600 in Charleston County, whereas now, there's 1,900 for sale in Charleston County. We've seen a slow but steady increase in new listings hitting the market. And the reality is, because they're taking longer to sell and because we're not putting as many of them under contract as we have in years past, what's being created is an excess of inventory. Now, when I say excess, I don't want you to think that the market is oversaturated, because it's not. At the end of the day, we still have 3 months supply of inventory, meaning nothing else hits the market. We're sold out in 90 days. A balanced normal market is about 6 months, right? So we're halfway there. Right? Good old Bon Jovi. But it's increasing. And this is one of those situations where, it's going to be like the frog that sits in lukewarm water that then turns into a boil. It's something that people aren't keeping their eye on. I am, because I'm seeing more and more homes become available every month, every week that I'm looking at these statistics. That's creating more choice. And that's creating a scenario where buyers now have more leverage against sellers, which is something they have not had for years. I mean, it's been a minute since a buyer had anything that they could use against the seller in the form of negotiations. Now, buyers are starting to say, well, look, rather than buy your house at full market value, I could go a mile down the road and buy a new construction home where the interest rate is 4% locked for 30 years. and I could get $10,000 in closing costs. Or I can not have to deal with old carpet and walls that need to be painted and, all the things that, we kind of get used to living in just in everyday life in our house. But when it comes time to sell it, buyers are walking through your house with dollar signs in their eyes, racking up all the charges against you for the things they feel they're going to need to do in order to make this home theirs. So you want to minimize that list of perceived expenses among buyers to try and get as close to fair market value as you can, maybe even more than fair market value. I mean, we just had one this week that hit the market and went under contract for over asking price almost immediately. It was awesome. And that does still happen. But as you see more and more inventory hit the market and stay on the market and not be absorbed at the same rate at which we're putting those properties on the market, it is going to inevitably weaken demand and lower prices at some point. Again, prices are up 3% compared to last year. But the challenge is it doesn't make sense. How can prices be going up if inventory is also going up? If interest rates are still at or around 7%, they've been oscillating between 6.5% and 7%. But there was a point in time not too long ago, right, where they were above 8%. And so we've got all these crazy signals and metrics going on in the market right now. We're seeing inventory continue to increase. We're seeing the affordability challenges. We're seeing increases in pricing on darn near everything that we spend money on in our lives. And real estate is one of them. It's still going up at some point. And I think at some point very soon, that music's going to stop. I don't see how we are going to achieve another year, 2 years, 3 years of almost double-digit increases in appreciation in home values. I just don't see it. So in my opinion, I think our market is slowing down. When I look at, when I walk through someone's house and we talk about selling it, I'm bringing very specific information to them that I've identified and analyzed and interpreted so that I can then present to them a very clear picture of what's happening in their specific market. And there are plenty of them where these statistics that I'm reading off, they're a lot worse. They're a lot worse. I mean, I was looking at, I'll tell you what, I don't want to do it right now because I've got my computer in front of me, but, James Island as an example, we were looking at a home that was going to be about $1 million. And so we were looking at some statistics there, and the days on market went from like 30 to 120 in a 3-month period. And I'm seeing that more and more as we dig into individualized statistics based on, the person that we're going to be working with. So some of these generalized statistics really don't tell the picture of what's happening in the market because you have to understand your market. You have to understand who you're competing with, what other buyers are paying, what sort of expectations they have. And the best way to do that is to work with an experienced real estate agent. So if that's something I can help you with, first thing I would say is get a copy of our guide. We put a lot of time and energy into it to give you guys a really comprehensive view of the process of selling a home and things to think about and just to self-educate. So if you want a copy of that guide and you haven't gotten it yet, text the word guide to 843-800-0065. That's 843-800-0065. Or check us out online, listingsincharleston.com. I want to continue our discussion on what I think is really going on in the real estate market right now. And there's too much to cover. There always is. There's so many different routes that I could take with this discussion, but I'm going to just go from personal experience based on the things that I'm seeing that impact people's decision-making, that impact the experience they have when they buy a house or when they sell a house. Because those are the stories that we hear, right? Those are the stories that are shared with friends and family about how good it was or how bad it was, and it kind of shapes our reality or our perceived reality of the real estate market. And that's why I put so much effort into this show to help you guys understand what's really going on so that you can make some informed decisions. And hopefully you've been, listening to the point where you understand that generalized market stats are all well and good, but you need to understand what's going on in your specific area, in your specific price range. And that's something that we do for folks all day long. If you want to know how much equity you have in your home, if you want to discuss a plan to sell your home and buy another. You want to invest in real estate. Maybe you'd like to have us manage your property for you with our property management company. We're happy to walk you through all of that. And there's no cost to any of this information. It's just an opportunity for us to form a bit of a connection with you and help you in any way we can. So reach out to us, 843-800-0065. That's 843-800-0065. Or check us out online, listingsincharleston.com. So we were talking about really kind of issue number one, in my opinion, which is that we're seeing this slow creep up of listings hitting the market that are not being absorbed at the same rate they have been in the past, which is leading to more options, right? It's leading to buyers being able to pin sellers against each other and say, well, hey, if this isn't good enough for you, then I've got another one down the street that I can negotiate. That's the way it was in a really big way after the crash of 2008. It was hard to sell a listing in that market, and we did a lot of them. But with everything that's happening in this market right now, there are plenty of agents that are freaking out because things are taking longer than 2 weeks to sell, and they don't have a strategy other than just reduce the price. They don't have a marketing plan. What they have is the MLS. What they have is the ability to put your home in the MLS so every other agent can see it. And then once it's in there, it goes on all these websites anyways, like Zillow and Realtor.com and Redfin and Homes.com and you name it. And usually for them, that's about enough. It's called the 3 Ps. Put it in the MLS, put a sign in the yard, and pray. Obviously, things are taking longer to sell. There are more properties for sale. Skill sets need to change. They need to improve. They need to adapt based on market conditions. And a lot of agents aren't used to selling real estate in this kind of market. They've not been around long enough to experience it. And that's just the reality. I was an international real estate coach for several years, coaching folks from New York and LA and Canada and everyone in between, folks that were doing hundreds of sales a year. And so I've got a pretty unique perspective on the trials and tribulations of a real estate agent. And I'm just here to tell you that a lot of them are struggling right now. Part of what's going on in our market is the either inability to price a property effectively or the inability to stand up for yourself and your expertise and tell a seller the truth about what their home is actually worth. It doesn't matter what kind of market we're in. It doesn't matter what's going on economically, politically, geographically. Agents will always have this issue. This will always be a problem. Forever and ever, amen. There will always be agents that will agree with whatever that seller wants to do. And let me just be very clear. When I'm meeting with an agent, when I'm meeting with a seller as an agent, I'm giving them my analysis of fair market value. And it's very well researched. It's very well thought out. And we sit down together and we go through why I feel the home should be priced where it is based on what the market is doing at that given point in time. My number sometimes is very far away from what a seller either thinks it's worth or wants it to be worth in order to accomplish goals that they have. They need it to be worth more so that they can afford to buy a more expensive home, or they can use the proceeds to pay off additional debts. Or in other words, I think you guys probably know by now that you can't manipulate the value of your home based on what you need out of it in order to make sense out of selling it in the first place. It's worth what it's worth. It's worth what a buyer's willing to pay. It's worth what you're willing to sell it for. And it's worth what we can prove through data. So the challenge is you're going to have agents, again, forever and ever, that when they know they are in a competitive listing environment, will say what they need to say in order to be the one that walks away with that signed agreement, right? They want to win that listing presentation. And then they'll just hope that at some point in time, you as the seller come down to reality and will actually price your property at an amount that will cause it to sell. But what's going to happen is you as the seller are going to get frustrated that you're not getting as many showings as you should be, that you're not getting offers. And you're going to get frustrated with the agent that keeps telling you to reduce the price when they sat down with you, they were all gung-ho about this asking price that you chose to hit the market for. The other problem is, and this is one of the reasons why properties are sitting on the market right now, is they don't react quickly enough when they realize they've missed the mark. They do not reduce the price quickly enough. They let it linger for too long. The problem is this. When you first hit the market, right? When you put your property on the market for sale, you're basically marketing to two groups of people. Group number one are the people that are ready, willing, and able to buy right now. They are actively looking. They're watching the market like a hawk, right? They've got all these searches set up on all these different websites. They're getting emails that they're checking every morning with their morning coffee, and they are looking for a property to buy. So your listing hits the market. They're going to look at that listing online. They're going to decide whether they want to view it in person or not and make an offer or not, right? Group number two, those are the people that enter the market every day, right? Something has changed in their life. Now they're ready to seriously consider buying a house. Well, at some point in time, usually within the first few weeks, it really doesn't take that long, you exhaust that first group of people. Those people have either seen that home online and decided to come and see it in person or not, or they're going to do what a lot of people do, is they're going to save it. They're going to save it online. And they're just going to wait. Once they do that, then, a lot of these sites are pretty intuitive these days, technology being what it is. And as soon as you adjust your price downward, they're going to get a notification and they're going to say, okay, all right, finally, this seller has come down to reality. Maybe they're going to actually be a reasonable person to work with. Because that's what you don't want, right? You don't want people thinking that you're unreasonable. Then again, maybe you are, and maybe you know that, and that's okay. There are a bunch of different types of sellers out there. Some need to sell right now. They've got a serious situation on their hands. They need cash now. They need to sell their home, right? They've got a ton of equity. They don't have cash. They don't have a lot of income. What they need is the money from their house. And so those are the people that respond to the cash offers that every agent seems to have these days. Every investor seems to have these days. And it's kind of trained this market to believe that rather than marketing your home for sale, which is the best way to get top dollar, there are these magical companies and people out there that are writing you a check, right? They're just paying cash for your house. Top dollar, no inspection, move when you want to move. I mean, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. But everybody these days has one of these get a cash offer incentive. I do too, because, look, if you really want a cash offer, I'm also an investor and I'll buy your house, but it's not going to be for what it's worth. No investor out there is buying real estate for what it's worth with what's going on in the market right now. Now, in years past, you'd have a lot of hedge funds that would be willing to pay top dollar because they knew prices were going up and because they could accomplish their return on investment when they turned that property into a rental property. A lot of those hedge funds are out right now. Or if they do buy something, it's certainly not for full price. I don't know of any investor out there that calls themselves an investor that lays their head down on the pillow at night with more than 2 brain cells that's paying full price for properties. Just to buy, there's a cost to buy it. There's a cost to own it while you're trying to sell it. There's a cost to sell it. There's taxes. 10%'s out the window as soon as you buy something and then go to sell it. So that was a bit of a tangent, but the reality is for a lot of you listening, look, yes, generating a cash offer as an example on your house is certainly possible. We have plenty of investors that will do just that, whether it's an institutional investor, a local investor, me, but no one out there is writing you a check for the full market value of your property as an investor, quote unquote. That just doesn't make sense. And I think a lot of you probably knew that already, but for those of you that didn't, who I've spoken with recently, there you go. There you have it. So I think, again, kind of circling back here, there's a lot of problems in the market right now, a lot of challenges, I should say, in the market right now. And a lot of it has to do, I think, frankly, with the strategy that agent and that seller chooses to employ when they put that property on the market. We're still seeing, just brass tacks, we're still seeing too many overpriced listings. People are missing the mark on what their home is worth, either because that's what the seller wants and the agent is just going along with it, or maybe the agent just doesn't know. I mean, they've got a general sense of what that home might be worth, but they've not been through a high-end training to really determine the value of real estate. They know price per square foot. They can pull up a list of the 10 homes that have sold in your neighborhood in the past 6 months and find the average price per square foot and say, well, yeah, it's probably around about that, but your home is nicer than average, so I think it should be here. I mean, it's not how you price a house, right? It's just not how it's done. A lot of people do it that way. It is the wrong way. Anywho, I've got a little bit more to discuss on what's going on in the market right now. I will say, just in the grand scheme of things, although it might sound like I'm a little irritated today with just the state of the market, I'm really not. My challenge is there are a lot of people that just are uninformed about the market, not necessarily from a consumer's perspective, but from the agent's perspective. I wish more agents would take more time to educate themselves on the market and the process, because at the end of the day, what you want is not just great customer service, right? Is not just somebody that has a ton of experience, but you want a market expert, right? You want somebody that really understands the dynamics of the market so that you can take advantage where you can and win. Get the best transaction possible, right? Make the most money possible. I like to think of it as making money, not saving money. So if that's something we can help you with, 843-800-0065. That's my cell. You can call or text that number, 843-800-0065, or check us out online, listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Get a copy of our free report, The Most Comprehensive Home Seller Guide in Charleston. Just text the word guide to 843-800-0065. Thanks again for listening. I always appreciate those of you that take the time out of your weekend to listen to the show and to prepare yourself for the road ahead if you're thinking of buying or selling or investing in real estate. I do also want to say that we've got a great property management company. We've been doing that for years. My family's done it for decades. And we're really, I think, proud of the model that we're using because it's designed to save people money. A lot of property management companies out there have a way of nickel-diming you to death, to kill your cash flow. We are very transparent with how we make money. We only make money when we place a tenant, when we collect rent, and if that tenant renews. That's it. So if you're thinking of having your property managed from someone like us that is not only just a great real estate team, but a group of investors, owns rental properties ourselves, we want to treat our customers the way that we want to be treated as we have our rental properties managed. And that's why we started it in the first place. We couldn't really find a rental management company that I was comfortable referring to people. So we just started our own, and I'm glad we did. So if we can help you with that, 843-800-0065 is our number. I just wanted to mention that really quickly. I probably don't do enough justice to that company and John Bischoff, our property manager, who's been around Charleston for decades and a ton of experience, incredibly awesome guys. So would love any business opportunities you guys can think of with regard to property management. Of course, just real estate in general. We're always here to help and appreciate that. So with these last few minutes, again, just kind of tying things up with a bow here. I've mentioned the fact that we have a lot more listings that are on the market and staying on the market, and that number's growing, right? Every day, every week, every month. We're watching that closely. It's, of course, having an impact on how long it's taking things to sell. We have either real estate agents or home sellers that they're just not being realistic about what that property is going to sell for. And sometimes it's really tough to determine what a realistic price is because there are agents that struggle with determining what that home should actually sell for. And sometimes it's not necessarily the agent's fault, so to speak. Sometimes there's just not a lot of sales data to review. But, tell that to an appraiser that gets hired to create a home value for your property. What are they just going to say? No, it can't be done? No, they're going to figure out a way to determine value for your property. A good real estate agent should be able to do the same thing. So I think we've got that as a challenge. We also have, and we haven't really talked about this a lot, but, first-time home buyers are getting hit really, really hard. They have been for years, and they are an integral part of our real estate market because of the trickle-up effect, right? So a first-time home buyer becomes a first-time home seller that then buys a more expensive home, and it benefits everybody all the way up the ladder, right? Same thing all the way down the ladder. So they're an important part of the puzzle here. And, last year, I think it was like 30% of all transactions were first-time home buyers, which is not where it needs to be. But what's interesting, and I was looking at these stats really quickly, people that are between 33 and 42 years old that bought a house last year, 46% of them purchased their first home between 33 and 42 years old. When they purchased the home, it was the first one they ever bought. People that were 43 to 57 years old, 20% of those transactions were their first home. And then 58 to 76, another 16%. But I just found it really interesting that, 33 to 42, folks that should be at a point where they're earning really good incomes, almost half of all of those transactions in that age range, that was their first home. And buying a home traditionally has been the American dream for creating wealth for yourself and your family. But that's been a pretty big missing piece of the puzzle because of affordability or lack thereof. So, I think that, again, going back to that kind of question I posed at the very beginning of this segment, which is, where is the market headed right now? What should you do if you're thinking of buying or selling? Well, it's pretty easy to see that there's mixed signaling out there, right? It's tough to say with certainty which direction we're going. I think that our market has been softening for months. I've not been afraid in sharing that sentiment. I think we still have challenges ahead of us. I think the market is going to continue to be softer than we want to admit it is, because real estate agents always want to create a scenario where right now is the perfect time to buy or sell. Go back to the start of the real estate industry, right? And I'm sure every year someone has said that right now is the best time to buy or sell, regardless of what's going on in the world, right? So you got to take all that with a grain of salt. But I think at the end of the day, if you want to know what's going on and what sort of plans you should be making, then have a conversation with an experienced real estate agent that knows how to navigate this market and this process for your benefit. And if that's something I can help you with personally, you can call or text me. It'll come straight to me. It's 843-800-0065. That's 843-800-0065. Check us out online, listingsincharleston.com. Get a copy of our guide, the most comprehensive home seller guide in Charleston. Just text the word guide to 843-800-0065. And thanks a lot for listening, guys. Check us next week. And don't forget to check out our YouTube videos. We've got a ton of content out there, and we're happy to help in any way. You guys have a great weekend. Thanks for listening to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show.
Join us for another edition of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show next Saturday morning at 9 and Sunday morning at 10. Find him online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or call him at 843-800-0065. That's 843-800-0065.